Well, welcome everybody back to session number 2 from Aaron Marcus's Becoming a Successful Actor and Commercial Model. This is the online workshop, and man, did we cover a lot of stuff in section number 1. We are going to continue on with Aaron and cover some more things in session 2. Aaron, what do you have for us now?
Well, let me just get this session started by, I just want to mention this again for people who might have come in late. You'll see on my screen here, I've got my website, Facebook, Twitter, and there's my email address as well if you do have questions later. But please, if you aren't following me on Twitter, or you might not have Twitter, but also becoming a fan on my Facebook page and then clicking like, and that's a great place to ask questions. And I also disseminate a lot of information in those areas as well. Okay, so the industry professionals that you need to know. That's how I like to start off the second section. You've got agents, managers, casting directors, art and creative directors, and then we're going to talk about unions and photographers. So agents, these are the people that will actually submit you for jobs. These are people who negotiate for you. They're the ones that give you information about the projects. If it's a modeling job, like I mentioned earlier, they will actually take their percentage out and then send you the check. They will help make sure that you get paid. The way that agents make their money is by taking a percentage, and it will vary depending on the situation and the market. Typically, now there are no unions involved with modeling, so there are no set rules, but typically agents will take a 20% commission fee from any modeling job that you get. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that the agents also get a 20% commission from whoever is paying for the job. So if the photographer is being invoiced or the advertising agency is being invoiced, they will pay the agent a 20% commission as well. So the agent is really getting 40% from any modeling job that you get. So there's a lot of incentive for the agent to get you to, get the job. They want you to work because that's a 40% commission fee. 20 from us, the model, 20 from whoever is paying for the job. There are many ways of finding agents. They have, and let me just grab this, because for those of you who have my directory, there, and I just want to make sure I got the right one. Actually, you know what? I've got this later on, and you'll actually see it, so you don't have to write this down. But there is an agentassociation.com. That's one place. You can also contact, you can go online, just Google agents in your area. For the people who've purchased my book and newsletter and directories, I know you were sent a list. There's a link of agents. On my website, there's also a list. It's not a real friendly printable format, but that's another place where I have listings of agents. And there, if you are working as an actor, and you're not involved in a union, typically you're going to pay a 20% commission fee. That's normal for agents to take. If you are a member of a union, the Screen Actors Guild, SAG, or AFTRA, the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, as of today, we are only allowed to pay our agent a 10% commission fee. And that might change in the future because agents are really not very happy. They're only getting 10%, but that's the fee as of today. So basically, that's what agents will do for you. Now, you've got managers. Managers are people who manage your career. They are looking at the bigger picture. They are helping you decide, what kinds of projects are going to be helpful to you long term. What kinds of projects should you take, or what kinds of jobs should you turn down? They will also help connect you with some of the great acting teachers in your particular area. The managers are extremely helpful, especially if you are younger, you're moving to Los Angeles, you're moving to New York, you don't have contacts. A manager will help connect you with the right photographers so that you can get the right pictures for your particular market. Typically, managers will take a 15% commission fee. Now, unlike agents, they're not licensed. They are not allowed to negotiate on your behalf. Managers are really not supposed to call casting directors to submit you for projects directly. Sometimes they do if they have a good working relationship with a casting director. but they're really not supposed to. So if you are working with a manager and you book a job, you'll be paying 15% to them. If you're a union actor and you get a job, now you're looking at 25% commission fee. Before taxes are withheld and all that, just right from the start. And some people will say, well, gosh, I don't want to spend 25% of what I'm earning in representation here. That's one way to view it. The way that I view it is, I'd rather make 75% from a good acting booking than perhaps making 100% of nothing. So if you do have a good manager, they can be very helpful to you. I don't have management, and typically if you're working in a smaller market, your agent should be able to do a lot of that work for you and be able to help you. And once again, I'll tell you about how to find managers. Well, just in case I miss it, there's an association. It's called talentmanagers.org. And you can look them up. Most of those managers who are a part of that association, they're going to be based in New York or LA, some Chicago, maybe some Miami. Casting directors. So casting directors are the people that cast projects. We, the actors, models, we do not pay casting directors at all. They make their money from getting hired by producers. And producers will hire the casting directors. The casting directors will send out information called breakdowns. And there's a company, it's the breakdown service. And information is sent out to agents and managers or whoever pays for that subscription. It's fairly expensive. But every day, the agents and managers will get tons of breakdowns of different kinds of projects. If it's a movie, it will break down the roles, the ages, the descriptions. If it's a TV commercial, the same thing. And then the agents will start submitting their talent to those casting directors. It might be online. Sometimes they mail in headshots. That's so unusual in today's time period. And then if they're interested in seeing you, you'll get a phone call and you go in and you actually read for the part. And getting called in, that's great. What that is saying is that somebody's interested in seeing you read. And I know that sometimes people get very upset. They don't book a job. They don't, get a call back, meaning they don't want to see you again for this particular role. Sometimes you get booked directly from your initial audition. Sometimes you'll have callbacks, meaning that you've read for the casting director the first time, but now they're interested in seeing you again, and now you'll have maybe the director. If it's a commercial, you might have people from the advertising agency. You could have the client in there. If it's a film or a television series, you could have multiple callbacks. I know people who've had 7, 8, 9 callbacks, and then it comes down to you and one other person, and one person walks away with a great booking, and one person walks away with a lot of callbacks and no booking. So anyhow, that's what casting directors do. And you can actually find casting directors as well. And let me just grab this directory. There's castingsociety.com. And once again, that lists lots of casting directors. So those are 3 very, very important people to you. You also have art and creative directors. These are people who work at advertising agencies. And the reason why I'm mentioning them is because sometimes they are the ones who actually make the final decision as to which actor gets hired for the TV commercial or radio commercial, or which model gets hired for the commercial modeling ad. Here's what they do. The art director, well, let me start with the creative director. The creative director comes up with a concept for the ad campaign. And so then they'll take that idea and put it on paper. It's called a layout. And it's a very clear description of what the ad is going to look like. If it's a TV commercial, they'll create, it's called a storyboard, and they show different frames as to what's going on in each scene. So the actor, when you go to the audition, sometimes they have them up there on the wall and you can actually see what's going on in the scenes. If it's a modeling ad, it's a layout and it's a description of what the character is looking like. Sometimes they'll have the headline, they'll have copy the words in the ad so you have a better understanding of what they're looking for. But what you want to do is you actually want to send in your headshot and or composite sheet to art and creative directors. And because sometimes they're the ones who make the decision. When you're writing your cover letter, and you can steal the one that I have in my book, the book is How to Become a Successful Commercial Model. Essentially, what it says in the cover letter is you want to make it short, sweet, to the point. You can say that you are a fresh face in this market, and that's a much better way of saying, hey, I've never done anything before in my life. So you're a fresh face in this market. Keep me in mind for future, and then you can list, TV commercials, radio spots, commercial modeling ads. If you are working with an agent, you have a signed contract, all your work is going through the agent, you can contact me through, and then put your agent's information in there, and they will know that's the person that they want to contact. Even if you don't have an exclusive contract with an agent, it still could be very helpful to do that, because there's no better way to either introduce yourself to an agent by calling the agent. Let's say if you book the job. In that case, you would have had your contact information in there. But if you book the job, you could say to the art or creative director, hey, I'd like to send this through my agent, and then they would contact this person that you already called, and you said, hey, to this new agent, look, I'd love to talk with you about representation. By the way, I just booked this job. Would you handle it for me? Well, of course they're going to want to handle it, because you just made them money. So that's a great way to find an agent and get them to work with you. The other thing, too, is the other reason why it's helpful to send things through an agent, even if you don't have an exclusive contract. And sometimes people think, well, I did all the work. I sent out the cover letter, I sent out my photos, I found the advertising agencies. Why should I pay a 20% commission fee for this modeling job? Well, here are a couple of ideas why it still might be in your best interest to pay the 20% commission fee. Let's say your ad is running in a newspaper ad, and you're getting $150 an hour. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. You could handle that one. But what happens if they say, this is running in a high exposure format? This is running in on a billboard, on a poster, on the side of a bus, on the internet. Those are high exposure formats. Typically you should get a bonus if it's running in a high exposure format, because you could actually lose work if your ad is running in a high exposure format. If you have a billboard running for a bank, and it's running all throughout your state, no other bank is going to hire you because you're so closely connected to a competitor. The other way that you could lose work being in a high exposure format is you can get overexposed. And there could be an ad for a local restaurant, and the photographer or art or creative director might look at your photo and say, yeah, she's perfect for this, but I've seen her all over the place for that bank billboard. Let's get a fresh face. So to help compensate you for potential loss of work, you should get a bonus. So if you book the job on your own and you're thinking, well, you know what, I'm going to save 20%, and all of a sudden the photographer says, hey, this is going to be running on posters inside banks in your particular area. What's your fee for poster usage? Well, you're not going to have a clue. And they might say to you, well, I'll tell you what, we'll give you an extra $75 or $100 or $200 for the usage for this. And you're thinking, well, that sounds pretty good because I'm only making $100 an hour anyway. Well, your agent might have gotten you $500. So that's another reason why it's helpful to send it through an agent. The other thing is you're letting your agent know you're marketable. You're letting your agent know that you are making money for your agent. And I know that sometimes agents will say, like, I don't have an A list of people who I really like and I send them out the most. I send out anybody. Of course they do. The people that book jobs are the ones that are going to be sent out first. Those are the ones that are going to be considered on the top of the list. So if you can be one of those people that's making money for the agent, then they're going to seriously consider sending you out as much as they possibly can. And the very last reason why it's helpful, what happens if you don't get paid? You can, if you book the job on your own and you made $150 and it's been 90 days and the photographer is saying, well, I'm trying to work on it, I haven't gotten you the check yet. Ultimately, what are you going to do? If you're not an attorney, or if you don't have a friend who's an attorney, you're not going to hire somebody for in a lawsuit. And I do know people who've gone to small claims court for small, amounts of money. I think it's under $600. However, if you send it through an agent, the agent has a lot more leverage. And if they're not getting paid, they can say to the photographer, hey, look, it's been 90 days. If I don't get paid, you're never going to work with my models again. And that could have a serious impact on the photographer. So for all those reasons, when you're marketing yourself, and if you do book a job on your own, it's very helpful to go through an agent, especially when you're first getting started and you might not know all the numbers and things you should be asking for.
So, Aaron,
okay,
we have a question.
unions.
We have a question from Donna.
Sure.
She says, "What do you think about IMTA and Barbizon?"
Okay. IMTA is a organization that has a convention, and there are many companies that have conventions, and people will pay to go to the conventions and be seen by managers, agents, casting directors, could be producers. You perform there, and what people are hoping for is that they are seen, that people like them, and that we're able to make connections. And Barbizon, like any other franchise school, and there are plenty of those places around. Here's what I say about all those kinds of places. You want to do your homework, you want to do your research for any kind of class that you go to. What you want to do, what I would suggest doing, is seeing if you can audit a class. One or two classes. I look. It's just like when my kids were applying to colleges, we went around to the colleges. They sat in on some classes, we spoke with a lot of people, had a pretty good sense of what they were going to be learning at those places, and you just want to make sure that before you spend any money, you're going to be getting your money's worth. Are they do they have instructors with people with real experience? Are they teaching you the kinds of things that you want to learn? And I'd also like to try to talk with some other students or past students and see what they have to say as well. So for any kind of convention, they can be very helpful to people, but it's important that you do your homework. And for any kind of school, whether it's a college and you're thinking about going into a theater program, or it's a franchise type school, do your homework. Just make sure that you're getting what you paid for. Any other questions? Sure. So let's talk about unions next. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about unions, talk about photographers, and then I think we should take like about a 10-minute break. I know we're not going on the hour, but we started at about, I think, 10 after 2. So let's talk about unions. There are a number of unions that deal with the entertainment industry. Excuse me. You have Equity, which is strictly for theater. It's not a very powerful union, so I'm really not going to talk about that one very much. The two unions that you really need to know about are the Screen Actors Guild, SAG, and there's also AFTRA, the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. Just to let you guys know, I have a feeling that at some point in the near future, SAG and AFTRA are going to merge. They're going to merge into one union. So far, every time it's come up for a vote, it's been voted down. But it's getting closer and closer and closer, and I think they will merge at some point. So let me tell you what they do, and then I can tell you a little bit more about them. I'll start off with AFTRA. Basically, and let me just back up for a second. What the unions do, just so that you know, they don't get you work. So don't think that, oh, I want to go out and join a union so I can start getting more work. They are not set up to get you work. They're there to help protect you and negotiate basic contracts and working conditions for actors. And that's it. They do not get you work. What AFTRA does, they've negotiated basic contracts for newscasters, reporters, musicians. There are certain television shows that fall under the AFTRA contract. All the soap operas are AFTRA. Some television commercials are AFTRA. Right now, there are quite a few new television shows, especially on some of the stations like the CW, that are under the AFTRA contract. I remember America's Most Wanted when that was on. That was an after a contract. Radio commercials, those are all after contracts. Then you've got the Screen Actors Guild. And once again, some of those areas overlap, which is one of the reasons why people want to merge. Television commercials, all the feature films that you see fall under the SAG contract. Training films or industrial films or educational films, some of those are after. Most of them are SAG. Lots of television shows are SAG. And so what they do is, like when I'm talking about basic contracts, here's how it works. If you are a member of the Screen Actors Guild and you want to do union work on a feature film, the union has negotiated a basic contract which stipulates, and I'm pretty sure it's $139 for an 8-hour day. That's what the union has negotiated. If you are a non-union actor, you might make anywhere from nothing to $50, $75 for the day. Sometimes they'll give you overtime money. It depends on the project. Then, if you're a member of the Screen Actors Guild and you're doing extra work, if you work a 9th and 10th hour, you get time and a half. If you work an 11th and 12th hour, you get double time. If you work, it's called golden time, over 16 consecutive hours. And that does happen sometimes. The union really doesn't want people working that long, but they understand sometimes you're in the middle of a shoot, and to break everything down and bring everybody back the next day, which can be a problem, what they do is they say, look, we'll let you do it, but to discourage you from doing it, you're going to pay for it. So for every hour that you work after the 16 hours, you start getting a full day's pay. You start making $139 an hour. And I've been on sets where I'm just working as an extra and I've made over $1,000, $1,200, just because of all the overtime and all they have meal penalties. You have to be fed. It's like being at the zoo. You have to be fed every 6 hours. Otherwise, there are meal penalties. If you bring more than one wardrobe, you get wardrobe fees. If you're walking down the street and they create rain and you get wet, even if you have an umbrella, you get wet pay. As a matter of fact, if you bring an umbrella and they tell you, you get a fee for the umbrella or a briefcase or a knapsack, for things like that. If they use your car, you get paid for that. So there are lots of benefits of being in the union. You will get paid more money. You get treated better. There's more protection. If there are bad working conditions and it's freezing outside and it's supposed to be a summer scene and you're outside in a t-shirt and shorts and they're not breaking often enough and they don't have a warm area for you to make sure you don't freeze it, well, the union gets phone calls and things get taken care of. The main thing, though, and where we make the most money by being in the union are through television commercials. That's where actors make their most money. If you are a non-union actor and you do a television spot, typically you're going to get paid your session fee, and that's completely negotiable. But after that session fee, that commercial can run forever, and you're not going to see another penny. If you're in the union, here's what happens. You get a session fee. And this is, look, you can ask for anything. I mean, there are famous actors that get paid, $1 million to do a TV spot. But if you're just getting, it's called scale. You're just getting the basic fee that the union has negotiated. I believe it's $592 for an 8-hour day. And the same thing kicks in for overtime. But then what happens is your TV commercial can run for up to 13 weeks. That's a quarter of a year. And depending on where your TV commercial is airing, you will get additional money. The larger the market, the more population, the more money. They're called units, and every city has a certain amount of units attached to it. So if you have a TV commercial that's running in New York, Los Angeles, or Chicago, those are the 3 largest commercial markets in the United States, you're going to get more money because I believe it's like $20-some per unit. I don't know how many units there are in those cities. But basically, you get your session fee plus the units that it's running in. And 13 weeks goes by, and then if they decide to renew it and they decide to continue to air it, now it can run 1,000 times a day or once a day. It doesn't make any difference. You're going to get your session fee and your units again. That is your residual check, and it is incredible. When you go to your mailbox every 13 weeks and you get a residual check for your session fee plus the units. Now that was a local spot. If you have a regional spot, that means it's running in maybe a multiple state area near you, or multi-state area. Then you've got national commercials, and right now I've got a national commercial running for the American Medical Association. And it's pretty cool. It just runs all throughout the country at all different times of the day and night. Now, once again, it's every 13 weeks. So I'm in my first cycle right now. I will find out in January whether it gets renewed, and I've got my fingers crossed that it does, because that's pretty cool. There is one other category. It's called Class A. And basically what that means, it's national, but instead of it just running randomly throughout the country, it is shown during a very specific time slot. So every commercial you see during a Super Bowl, that's a Class A. If a commercial is running during prime time television, the advertising agency knows that people who watch a specific show would be interested in this product. They buy a 30 or 60-second time slot, or it could be 50-second or 15-second time slot. That is a Class A. Every time it airs, you get a check sent to you, which is pretty cool. So if they decide to renew it, it keeps running. They could also put the TV commercial on hold, which means they decided in your next cycle they're not going to air it, but they're putting it on hold, so they'll still send you a session fee. They do that because they're considering using it at some point in the future, but it's cheaper for them to pay you a session fee, which will prevent you from working for a competitor for that time period. The third thing is then they could also just drop it and you don't get paid anything, but now you can work for anybody, you know, even a competitor. So essentially, here's the deal with unions. I am a member of SAG and AFTRA, and I'm a real supporter of the unions. And having said that, my feeling is, and I don't know if the union would be upset with me about this, but when you're first getting started, I wouldn't recommend joining the union. I wouldn't jump into it too quickly. There are a couple things to consider. One is, have you had much experience? My thought is, get as much experience doing non-union TV commercials, radio commercials, training films, student films. Get as much experience as you possibly can. And if you live in an area where there is union work available, if you're living in a very small market and there is no union work there, I don't know that it would be all that helpful to you to join the union, because the number one rule for being in the union is, once you join the union, you can only do union acting jobs. They don't care about modeling, but if it's an acting job, it has to be union. So I'm thinking, you know, don't join too quickly. Wait until you're ready. And there are plenty of great, very talented actors who've chosen never to join the union, you know, and that's fine. Unfortunately for me, there are tons and tons and tons of markets, even fairly large markets, where there's a lot of non-union work that I simply can't touch. So anyhow, for the very last part of this section are photographers. And I mean, you guys know what photographers do. There are many ways of finding them, and I'll give you some websites later, but once again, I'll just mention it quickly here. There's ASMP, American Society of Media Photographers, and it's .org. It's an organization where photographers are selected. People submit their work. If they're selected, they can be part of this organization. There are over 5,000 members of ASMP, and this is a way of finding photographers in your area. Just go to their website, find, you know, your particular area. If they do architectural photography, if they do year-end reports for corporations, don't bother with them. But if they do commercial photography, or maybe you'll find some assistant photographers who are interested in building their commercial portfolio, these would be great people to try to do some of your test shots with, and maybe you could even do them at no cost to you. So anyhow, you know what? I'll just show you this stuff real quickly, and then we'll end this. So for finding agents, and just so you know, you don't have to copy this down because you're going to have a copy of this later. Agents Association. Also, there's something called the call sheet. This is another way of finding agents. You can also go to howtomodel.com. Also for finding managers, talentmanagers.org. Casting directors is Casting Society. Also in this publication called the Call Sheet. It comes out, I think it's 4 times a year. It's either 3 or 4 times a year. And it just lists tons of agents, primarily in New York and LA. You will also find casting directors, what projects they are casting. you can buy one copy. I think it's about $12. It's a great investment. I don't know that you need to subscribe. I mean, people do change. Some of the contents will change, but a lot of the information will hold true for quite some time. For finding advertising agencies, here are some different organizations, the AAAA.org. There's American Ad Agencies, which is a really good association as well. And for finding advertising agencies in Canada, I had to do the abbreviated version because I know we have some Canadians who are participating here. And for unions, you can get tons of details about the costs and things like that, how to go about joining. I do have that information and how to become a successful commercial model as well. And here are the websites for both equity and AFTRA, as well as for SAG. And for photographers, like I said, there's the ASMP.org. So let's do this. Are there any questions right now?
Yeah, we do have a question from Jermaine.
Okay.
The question is, how does being in the union affect an actor working internationally? For example, Bollywood films or French films. Working conditions internationally for an actor or for an actor transitioning from the U.S. to the U.K. or India, etc. So I guess the gist of the question from Jermaine is, what is it? Does it limit you going overseas if you try to get work overseas by being an American in an American union? And how does that work out?
Okay. Yeah. Now, and that's a great question. My understanding, and I'm not 100% sure about this, so it would be good to do a follow-up maybe with the union about this, but here's my understanding. Once you become a union member, it has to be a union job. Now, I know, like for instance, in Canada, there's a union called ACTRA, A-C-T-R-A, and it's kind of considered a sister union. In the UK, they also have a union. And if the project is let's say a UK project, and you go over there and you're a member of the Screen Actors Guild, I mean, I know their number one rule is it has to be a union job. Now, having said that, now I'm not an attorney, so I can't give you legal advice, and once again, I would follow up with the union with this. I thought that there are places that the union does not have any union jurisdiction, in which case I don't know that they would be able to touch you if you went to, I don't know, Australia, or you went to India and did a non-union film there. I mean, certainly you wouldn't have any backing from the union. You wouldn't be able to call them if you ran into problems. Any money that you earn wouldn't go towards retirement, because if you earn a certain amount of money over 10 years, then you actually become vested and you get retirement money. If you earn enough money in a calendar year, you can actually get insurance that is free. Wouldn't count towards that. So that's a good question. My guess, and I'm just strictly guessing, that you might be able to do work in certain parts of the world that the union doesn't have any jurisdiction in. There is also something else that the union frowns upon, but you should know about it. It's called financial core. And the short version of this is that there was a Supreme Court case that had nothing to do with the acting union. It was another union where basically the Supreme Court said that unions cannot prevent people from making a living. So basically, you can be a union member, and then if you decide that you want to be able to do non-union work and union work, what people have done, it's not something that I would do, it's not something I support in any way, but I do know people that have done this. They fill out a form, and it's called becoming financial core. And what that does is you kind of lose your union status, or not kind of, I think you lose your union status. You can still do union work and you still get paid union wages, but you can also do non-union work, and the union cannot bust you on it. They can't do anything to you about it because you've gone financial core. And I know you can't vote for union elections, you can't attend union meetings, things like that once you've become financial core, which I assume that also would easily allow you to work anywhere in the world. Does that answer your question?
I believe that answers the question. He has a there's a follow-up question here. Um,
Sure.
I'm concerned about going overseas as an actor and the working conditions when traveling or moving there. How do I protect myself, avoiding that happen? And kind of in the same vein, another question about attorneys. Do you recommend having a list of attorneys specializing in entertainment law? So I don't know if you want to answer both those right now, Aaron, or take a break and we can answer those maybe privately
I think I
offline.
can answer those. I think I can answer those pretty quickly.
Sure.
When you're talking about basic contracts with agents, they're normally pretty standard contracts. And honestly, you know, at this kind of level, look, if we're talking about multi-million-dollar deals and percentage points on films and products connected, yeah, absolutely, hire an entertainment attorney. For a basic contract with an agent, most of them are pretty standard. If you don't understand legalese, I'm pretty certain that you could show it to pretty much any any attorney and they would be able to tell you what this says in plain English. They could translate it. And if you don't want to hire an attorney, there might be some kind of lawyers association in your area. There could be some kind of lawyers for the arts community where sometimes people volunteer their time. And as far as working overseas and protection, I mean that is a danger, and that is one of the problems when you don't have the backing of a union. Um, Once again, to make a long story very short, when I wasn't paid the right amount of money from a television show that I worked on, because I know that I worked longer than they had me listed for, I was able to go to the union, and I could prove exactly how long I worked, and I got paid. So when you do work overseas and you're not affiliated with the union in that country, it is riskier. And so maybe you can find out what union is in that particular country, in that area, see if you can be involved with it. Maybe it's considered a sister union with a union in the United States. And for AFTRA, you can actually, and I know they don't like it put this way, but it's the truth, you can just buy your way in. And everybody who's listening here today, the next, on Monday, you can go to the AFTRA office and pay and become an AFTRA member. And if that's what it takes for you to have an ability to join a union in another country so that you can have more protection, well, maybe that is a way of trying to do that. Um, so anyhow, hopefully that will answer that for you. Let's do this. It is 3:30 Eastern Standard Time right now. Why don't we take a 15-minute break, and we will come back at 3:45 and we will continue in the next section.
All right. Thanks, Aaron. Everybody, just leave your computer logged on, and we'll take a 15-minute break. We'll be here at 4 3:45 Eastern Standard Time. So just do the math to adjust to your time zone. But that is in 15 minutes, and we'll see everyone there. Thanks.